Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. So an advocacy group has initiated a petition to bar US star Chris Brown from performing in South Africa, citing concerns of a history of violence against women. A petition, which has already garnered significant support, is demanding that Home Affairs revoke Brown's visa and actually prohibit him from performing in the country. For more on this, let's bring in the organization's spokesperson, that's Bulelwa Adonis, who joins us via our video link this morning. Bulelwa, it's great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for making time to speak to us. I suppose I kind of touched on this, but let me ask you explicitly, why do you not want Chris Brown in South Africa?
Good afternoon, Ayanda. Thank you so much for having us. I think we're just looking at what our country is being plagued by. So this is bigger than the individual himself. This is bigger than the artist, than the entertainer that everybody loves. We're looking at the fact that we are rape capital of the world, that we have a GBV issue, a femicide rate that's 5 times higher than the global average. So we're not helping ourselves by being entertained for 2 days with somebody who has a record, by bringing them to a country like ours where we suffer from GBV. So we are just fighting what we stand for on our integrity, which is anti-GBV.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the debate. It's taken off and is in overdrive on places like social media. And suppose you're expecting some of my next questions. Amongst Chris Brown's defenders are people who are saying that we can walk and chew at the same time. I mean, you can have a situation where you're against gender-based violence, but separate the actions of the artist from the art, which is his music. What's your response to that kind of thinking?
It's a bit concerning to me. It's a bit concerning to us as an organization because I think it normalizes a lack of accountability, because in this country, just because you are fascinated by, well, in this case, your individual's music, ability to dance, etc., whatnot, we forget that we are ultimately paying these people by choosing to do this, by choosing to have such a mentality, by paying into them. I'm not telling people how to spend their money, but I think thinking like that is slightly concerning, because we can speak about rehabilitation, but then in a case like that, you're telling me that we can separate actions, but then let's look at the good parts of an individual. And it leads us to a place like what South Africa is currently being, rape capital of the world, and with us normalizing victim blaming.
Does it matter at all to your organization that, Chris Brown may come out to say that he's completely reformed? This was at a time when he saw the world differently in his own life. He's learned from his lesson, and he too is now an activist against gender-based violence.
I mean, if it's a case like that, because his fans have actually spoken about that. His fans have said, he did the crime, he did the time, but a lot of people are specifically focusing on the whole Rihanna incident, because that's the one most people know about in 2009. But I think our issue is, as an organization, that there's still multiple accusations leading up to this year in his name, or against him, rather to say. But I mean, if it's a thing like that, people do get rehabilitated and whatnot. I think just the concern is that the accusations have not disappeared. I mean, there is a documentary coming out at the end of his accusations and his abuse history.
Of course, you, in fact, have considered this already. The issue around gender-based violence is way bigger than Chris Brown. And, one wonders then how preventing him from coming to the country actually solves what's at the heart of the problem. That's at least the argument as it goes.
I think it would send a strong message to say that as a country, we're getting to a point where we're becoming strict about who we allow into our country first and foremost. I think the message that it would send if they revoke his visa or he can't perform anymore, if that happens. But I think we need to realize that we already have such a huge problem in this country that it doesn't help us bringing him this side. It doesn't better the situation. Everybody is fixated on this debate topic of, what difference is it going to make? It'll send a strong message to say that not any and everybody can't come to our country, because we're already struggling with this. Until we get it right, I think it would send a message to say that we are not taking it lightly, anything that has to do with GBV, and we're going to take your record seriously. And I think that it would send a strong message to say that accountability is finally being taken seriously in our country.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many signatures you've been able to garner so far, but what's not lost on us is that, Chris Brown has been able to sell out the venue where he's likely to perform. And, some people are suggesting that if Chris Brown were an independent candidate in our country, he'd qualify for 2 seats in the National Assembly. The point I'm trying to make is that notwithstanding the controversy, this is a man who's got a lot of support in a country like ours. And I wonder what your reflections on that are.
So we have just over 13,000 signatures, and he has a lot of support. We have seen that with the amount of backlash and hate that we have been receiving as an organization and people coming for us personally. It's clear as day that people love him. It's clear as day that people adore him and whatnot. And you know what? Everybody, what do they say in English? They say to each his own. Everybody has their own taste. Everybody desires their own thing. I think it's concerning because it tells me that entertainment for a couple of days or a couple of hours far surpasses what is deemed as normal in our country, and as an organization, we don't mind because there's a possibility of him still performing, because like you said, his concerts are sold out. So there is a possibility of him coming through, and that's okay. That doesn't stop us as an organization from doing the work that we're doing. We're going to stick to our integrity. We're going to stick to fighting against gender-based violence. And even those who hate us, if unfortunately be things, they require our help, they require us to share their stories and to assist them, we're still going to do that because that is who we are as an organization.
Yeah. What I find, Bulelwa, is that a lot of people don't disagree with the work. I find that the point of convergence is slightly more nuanced than perhaps what we're willing to admit. Most reasonable people know gender-based violence is wrong. Most reasonable people want to feel that they're not contributing to gender-based violence perpetrators getting off the hook. I suppose in this case, it's a matter of how that activism ultimately manifests itself and where one draws the line. I'm sure you've kind of thought about those questions yourself.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think I remember when I first started working with Women for Change at the very beginning, the conversations that I curated were only online because we're predominantly an online place. I know that people would come and say, okay, but this sort of activism, how does it help? And another question people like to ask us who support us are like, how do we help? How do we educate one another? How do we support the cause? Not just of this case with Chris Brown, but I mean, fighting against gender-based violence. And I think we just believe in education and we believe in the power of conversation. So I do understand. I completely get what you're saying with the nuance of things and what this sort of activism means, because I think people are probably infuriated that probably their plans in December have been, that we're trying to alter their plans to some extent, with this kind of activism, and that we are abusing the activism space or abusing our platform or abusing our influence as an organization, when really we were listening to our community as well, because they were also a part of the reason as to why this petition exists in the first place, saying that, but we're anti-GBV, how can this individual be here? So I completely get what you're saying, to each their own, people understand things their own way, but for us, we have gotten to the position that we're in, the influence that we're in, because we've been consistent. We don't take breaks. We've been consistent in literally fighting GBV on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you ask me, I think the conversation is a step in the right direction at the very least. And hopefully if we engage in it honestly and genuinely, people's insights will be opened to different ways of looking at how to be a gender-based violence activist. I'm reminded, for example, of the controversy around Lalela Mswane, the former Miss South Africa of the country, when she decided to go take part, I think it was in the Miss Universe pageant in Israel. That was even before the flare-up of the war. And even then, there was such a charged debate and interesting insights about what activism really looks like. But anyway, I digress. Bulelwa Adonis, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. We appreciate your time here on the SABC News Channel.